subscribers. So I want to make this a super fast video. So today I'm not going to sit here and read through tons and tons of verses. I have a few verses that I will read, um, a very small selection that I think prove very good points very quickly. But I'm going to make a lot of logical points, and sometimes logic is the best tool. So we have two major myths, that Christianity believes today, commonplace. Okay, the average Christian, I would say the vast majority of Christians, believe that there's going to be a 7-year tribulation in the end days, and they also believe that Rome is the final beast kingdom. Now, I've already made some very good videos on my channel. I think I still have two videos up. I have a longer one and a shorter one where I address the theory of Rome being the final beast. And I give a lot of evidence there why it's not and it cannot be the final beast. But for this video here today, so refer to that if you want to watch a sorry, I have an itch. If you want to watch a longer video with more evidence. But this is just a quick video here today. So I'm going to pick out the best golden nuggets, the best reasons why Rome simply cannot be the fourth beast. And then at the end, I'll get into the 7-year tribulation, because that's very, very easy to disprove. So I'll get into, is Rome the final beast? A lot of Christians believe this. I used to believe it, which I'll mention in a second. But in my current life, right now, currently, it brings me dismay when I keep hearing so many fellow Christians, they just firmly believe that Rome is the final beast. Now, let's backtrack real quick in my life. Back when I was 18 and I started studying the Bible, and I was probably listening to what people were saying as well, I believed back then for a number of years that Rome was the final beast. Okay, I can't remember for how long because I didn't really time it, but for years I believed that Rome was the final beast. I had my own understanding of things, my own little theories here and there on, this and that. But I believed that Rome was the final beast. Back then, I had bought all these books and watched all these things, and I believed all the other theories out there that people, conspiracies and stuff, talking about, that brotherhood that's trying to rule the world and all of this. And, David Icke books and just everything under the sun. And I used to believe a lot of those theories. And I'm not here to talk about those things, but I don't really believe them anymore. And, when you're in those circles, and unfortunately a lot of Christians are, and whether they realize it or not, by believing Rome is the final beast, you've fallen victim to that circle, because that circle is a big circle. There's a lot of people that believe these theories. The United Nations is evil, they say, and, there's 10 horns of the United Nations, and there's so many theories out there in the Club of Rome, and they say everything's controlled by the Vatican, and there's all these far out there theories. But, I grew up, I matured, and as I got older, I realized that all of this stuff was just nonsense. There wasn't really anything backing it up, especially in the Bible, and it's just complete fluff. So I don't really believe in those things at all anymore. There's many different things, but generally I don't believe in them anymore, with reason. Rome being the final beast is one. But now that I have deepened my biblical study over these 20 years of my life now, since I started studying the Bible, written my systematic theology, which is published around the world and has excellent reviews. Now that I'm at this point in my life, I'm educated in the Bible enough to know that Rome cannot be the final beast. Okay, so the average Christian out there would be like, oh no, you're wrong, Rome has to be, and here's all the reasons, and trust me, I've heard them all. Okay, I've heard it all a million times. I used to believe all those things, and on top of that, in my further year study, I've heard it all. There's nothing that anybody could say that I haven't heard before about Rome being the final beast. All the things, trust me, I have heard it. Okay, but I'm going to say things here tonight that the average Christian hasn't heard before. Okay, hasn't considered or thought before. Number one, this one's very important. Jesus was born around 4 BC. He died around 29 AD. Give or take a few years. Right? Everybody knows this. Now, Jesus was born into a Roman kingdom, the Roman Empire. Roman rulers ruled the land at that time. Jesus wasn't a dum-dum. He knew this. Jesus was put to death at the hands of the Roman Empire. Roman centurions and guards were watching his cross and mounted him to the crucifix and everything. Now, Rome had defeated Grecia, which was the prior beast kingdom Daniel described, the one that Daniel actually names. It's the Grecia, so there's no dispute there. He doesn't attribute a nation to the fourth beast, but he does attribute a nation to the third. So we know Grecia. Well, we know from history Grecia was overthrown by Rome in around 150 something BC. So that means when Jesus was born into this Roman Empire, the empire had existed for over 150 years. I mean, Rome is more ancient than that. It goes back way further, probably 1000 BC or whatever, right? Well, the point is, the empire was ruling that land and everything, was ruling those territories 150 years before Jesus. Now, Jesus lived his life in the Roman Empire, was put to death at the hands of the Roman Empire. He resurrected, and many decades later, he returned to John before John died, and he gave John the book of Revelation. Okay, and Jesus warned about the beast in the book of Revelation. The same beast, the final beast, which Daniel spoke about. To Daniel, it was the fourth and the final. To Jesus, it's just described as this final beast. Okay? They're talking about the one same thing, and nobody argues on that. It's the one same beast. It's the final beast. Who is this final beast? Because neither Jesus or Daniel give the name of a nation and ascribe that to this beast. So we're left to calculate and understand who this beast is. So without listening to all the fluff as to why you think Rome is the beast, let's hear some very sensible things. One, like I said, everything I just said. Jesus was born in the Roman Empire, put to death at the hands of the Roman Empire. He came back and gave the revelation to John while the Roman Empire was still in existence. And Jesus told us about the beast. At any point, Jesus could have said that Rome is the final beast. Nowhere did he say such. Now, this becomes a major... That's a good point in itself. But I can concrete this one in here. This is such a good point of observation that anybody who believes Rome is the final beast should feel ashamed once they hear this. Okay? Because you probably haven't considered this. Taking the extra 1 + 1 + 1 steps. Just the extra few steps. Those next few plus ones to put the two pieces together in your head and realize, holy moly, that's a problem. Now, you remember the time when Jesus instructed the disciples to give the coin that had the image of the Roman emperor on it, Caesar, whoever, and said that famous line, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's? Every Christian knows that verse. It's a famous Christian verse that Jesus spoke. Now, if Rome really is the final beast, as so many Christians allege, we know because we're told by Jesus in Revelation that the final beast kingdom will be in charge of issuing this mark of the beast, which would be related and tied into currency, and we wouldn't be able to buy or sell, or whoever are the victims of this wouldn't be able to buy or sell without this mark of the beast on this currency. Now, if Rome really is the final beast kingdom, don't you think that it's quite blasphemous to then turn around and accuse Jesus of saying, oh, yeah, Rome is the final beast kingdom, and Jesus told us that that the final beast will install this evil currency of the beast system. But here we have Jesus instructing us to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Nowhere does Jesus, that's blasphemy. You're accusing Jesus of telling you to tamper with the mark of the beast. See, the reality is Jesus never pointed out that Roman coin and said, hey, the Rome is the final beast. Jesus never said that once. He never said that while he was alive or in the book of Revelations. Never did he point out, or anybody else in the New Testament, point out that Rome was the final beast. And more importantly in the book of Revelations, because that's where, They always had the book of Daniel where it talked about the final beast, so they all had full reason to think about those things and come up with their own theories at the time. But nowhere was it said by any of the New Testament writers or Jesus while he was alive that Rome was the final beast. Okay? And nowhere in the book of Revelation, which came many decades later from Jesus to John, nowhere there is it said that Rome was the final beast. But we do have Jesus instructing us, to still work, even to work for Rome, like he told the disciples. Work, earn your wages, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And at no point does he say, oh, condemn that currency because it's the mark of the beast of the final beast kingdom. You know what I mean? So that's one good logical observation that, Rome cannot be the final beast king. Okay, but another good one is that in Revelation 17, okay, we're told from Daniel that the final beast has 10 horns. When it rises up, it has 10 horns. It doesn't get 10 horns later and start off with other unnamed and unimportant horns. No, it rises up with 10 horns. In the book of Revelation, Jesus says that the final beast rises up with 10 horns. It's stated many, many times in a number of verses. Okay? Now, in Revelation 17, Jesus says, in verse 12, "And the 10 horns that thou sawest are 10 kings, who a kingdom did not yet receive." So, Jesus was born in the Roman Empire, died at the hands of the Roman Empire, came back decades later, giving the revelation about the final beast to John during the time of the still existing Roman Empire. And Jesus tells John at that time that the 10 kings who rise up with the beast kingdom don't yet have a kingdom at this current time, John, which was 70 to 90 something AD. The final beast did not exist in the time of Rome. Therefore, the final beast cannot be Rome. That's what so many people have overlooked. Okay? They overlook the obvious. You get into conspiracies when you start saying, oh, well, Jesus must have kept it secret that Rome was the beast. I've heard all these things, that Revelations was coded, but it's secretly talking about Rome and the Holy Roman Catholic Empire. I've heard everything under the sun, how Vatican's on 7 hills. Most Christians don't even know that Jerusalem is on 7 hills. It's famous. Go look it up for yourself. The 7 hills of Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives, 826 meters. Mount Scopus, 826 meters. The Mount of Corruption, 747 meters. The original Mount Zion, the Temple Mount, 740 meters. And the list goes on. Jerusalem is on 7 hills. Yeah, the Vatican's on 7 hills. I think Mecca is also on 7 hills. A lot of things are on 7 hills. Atlantis was on 7 hills as well. And Atlantis actually had 7 kings and 10 sub-kings. And there were 7 mountains rising out of the ocean. Atlantis sounds like the final beast. I used to believe that for a few years, right? Around the time I was believing that Rome was the final beast. But the reality is that, no. Despite all the fluff, where people try to fluff up the atmosphere and make it look like Rome might be the final beast, you can't take away from the hard-hitting facts that I have just stated. Okay? Jesus is right here saying that the final beast does not have its kingdom yet. And he's saying that during the time of Rome. Okay? Now, another good thing to observe is that Rome existed in the time of Daniel. Okay? It existed in the time of Grecia later, after Daniel. Why wouldn't it be mentioned if Grecia was mentioned by Daniel? Probably because it's a kingdom that comes later. I believe Islam was the final beast, right? I don't want to waste time talking about that today. I'm just going to focus on this one thing, right? The other thing you have to consider, another point of logic, is when Daniel's getting his prophecies and relaying them to us, nowhere does he say at any point, and I cover this better in my longer videos, but nowhere does he say, oh, there's going to be, like a huge 2,000-year gap of time between Rome, which they ironically say is the final beast, but between Rome and then a 2,000-year gap, and then Rome resurfaces in the end days as this final kingdom that crops up. This is what the Rome is the final beast circle commonly believes. Okay? So they believe that because they can't deny that Rome existed in the time of Jesus and it was extinguished. It was conquered by the German Goths and such in like 2 or 300 AD or whatever it was. The remnants of Rome converted to Christianity, for heaven's sake. But despite these blatant facts, people still come up with a reason to believe that Rome is the final beast. Despite the fact that Rome was conquered and destroyed, it died as an empire, it died as a religion, everything. It died out, and the remnants became Christian. Despite these blatant obvious facts, they still say and come up with a conspiracy to say that, oh, yeah, Rome existed, but it died out. And then, yeah, 2,000 years later, no mention from Jesus or Daniel that there'd be such a huge gap of 2,000 years, right? Major problem, noodle scratcher number one. But that 2,000 years later, Rome would crop back up. Now, you show me anywhere in the text where it says any of that it's going to exist, then be conquered, blah, blah, blah. 2,000 years later, it's going to come back up, but be like the secret shadow government thing run by a secret brotherhood and all this hoopla. It's just pure conspiracy, right? Ancient peoples didn't believe all that. Yeah, some ancient peoples probably thought Rome was the final beast, but not all of them did. And when Islam came around, most of the ancient scholars were saying that Islam was the final beast. Okay, it's in our recent last 100 years or so, so many books are written with the printing presses going berserk. People began to be able to publish books. You didn't have stuff like that hundreds of years ago. So we got lots of books printed. So in the last 100 years alone, so many people came up with these bogus theories, printed them in books, sold millions of copies. Then you had hundreds of millions of people reading and hearing about these kooky theories, some of which are Rome is the final beast, and others like the 7-year tribulation and everything. A lot of these things weren't ever considered by any reputable person in ancient times. A lot of that magnetism to those theories cropped up in the last 100 years with the advent of all these printed books, which are essentially conspiracy theories. Okay? But if Rome was the final beast, Daniel could have told us because he knew about Rome. Jesus could have and probably should have told us for many good reasons. And it just can't be Rome because of what Revelation 17 says here, where Jesus blatantly says that the 10 kings of the beast kingdom don't have a kingdom yet, but yet it's the time of Rome. Okay? Another obvious fact is that Rome built the last temple for the Jews. Rome was barbaric in certain practices, yes, and they were pagans, yes. Rome had a lot of intelligent people. They had a lot of virtuous people, though. They weren't completely outright evil. You know what I mean? They did allow a lot of religions, or most or all religions, to practice their own religion. It was only later they started persecuting Christians, and that was because of conspiracies, actually, that cropped up at the time. Allegations that they did certain crimes and things and, burned Nero's temple or whatever it was. But, they tolerated other people's religions. And they did civilize other more barbaric cultures. They did, you have to admit that. They did unfortunately spread their own paganism, but they were going out, even in Europe, going out to primitive, barbaric European tribes, and they were converting them at least, halfway towards something sensible. You know what I mean? And they did have law and order. A lot of crimes were punished. I mean, they weren't outright evil. You know what I mean? They weren't like satanic on a widespread scale, right? They definitely didn't have it right. Don't get me wrong. They weren't outright evil. They allowed people to practice their own religions. That's a far cry from Babylon, where if you didn't worship the emperor, you were thrown in the furnace, right? Rome built Jews the second temple, right? They governed Judea and allowed the Jews and Christians to do all that they did up until a few crazy Roman rulers showed up, okay? So those things cannot be denied as well. Right? They cannot be denied. Yes, Rome did ransack and destroy the temple and conquer it in 70 AD, conquer Israel. Yes, I'm not denying that, but you also can't deny that they built the temple and that they allowed every religion to practice their own religion. They did spread civilization. A lot of the Roman roads still exist. The aqueducts still exist. They brought technology and science and a lot of, even virtuous wisdom to the world. and literature and all sorts of things, expanded human consciousness, in different levels, and you do have to give them credit for that. Um, be much different in, say, for example, if Genghis Khan had conquered the world and forced everybody to believe whatever it was that they believed. That would be very different. Or very different if the Aztecs had conquered the world and forced everybody to worship the Aztec deities and do their temple sacrifices and stuff. Very, very different, right? With the Romans forbid human sacrifice, they forbid cannibalism, and most of their sacrifices were virtually identical to the Jewish sacrifices. So, but anyways, right? A lot of it just comes down to conspiracy theories that people believe, when looking in reality and with common sense, it doesn't make any sense that Rome would be the final beast. Then you would have to say that Jesus kept it secret. You know what I mean? That makes it a conspiracy by definition. You're alleging that Jesus concocted a conspiracy that has no basis or explanation in the scripture. That's the major problem. Now, the other thing is that Daniel says in 4 places that the fourth beast is not like all the other beasts or any other kingdom on the earth. Now, this is another very good point to make, because this right here, each one of these is like a home run hard hitter. It knocks Rome right out of the battle park of consideration, because Rome was just like Greece. Nobody can deny this. Anybody with, one brain cell could, a young child could observe, if you showed them Greek and Roman culture, religion, architecture, the gods, everything, just everything, they would say, oh yeah, these two look alike. Put Roman and Greek next to anybody else, Aztec, Hindu, Inuit, whatever it might be, all the different myriads, Zulu, right? Put them all next to everybody else. Ancient China, they don't resemble it. Greece and Rome next to each other, bam, identical carbon copies. The religions were literally carbon copies. They're the architecture, so much, but most importantly, the religion. That's like the most defining thing when you're talking biblically. It was a carbon copy, literally. And if you don't know enough about Roman and Greek religion, then go learn. Some people don't, right? If you don't know about it, then please understand. Go educate yourself, read just a little bit about Roman and Greek. Go do a little research for 5 minutes, and you will see that yes, Roman and Greek, essentially, it was the same one religion, just with different names for the gods. It's not even contended. That is an established fact, right? So with Rome and Greece being so identical, then here are the following verses, right? Daniel 7:3. He says, and 4 great beasts are coming up from the sea, diverse one from another. So he's saying that all 4 are not alike. We had Babylon was the first one. Babylon's not like Grecia, and it's not like Rome. It's different from those, and it's not like the Medes and Persians. It's very different. Different people, different culture, different religion, right? Then we got the Medes and Persians, again, different religion, different culture, different people. Then we got the Grecians, different culture, religion, people, right? Oh, and then Rome. Oh yeah, well, it's the same religion, same looking people, virtually the same culture. Gee, Rome is just like Greece. That doesn't fit. Daniel said, be diverse from one another. In Daniel 7:7, he's literally talking about the fourth beast, and he says, and it is diverse from all the beasts that are before it. Now, Greece allegedly came just before Rome. Well, Rome is just like Greece. So are we going to call God a liar? No. God told us that the fourth beast, the one after Grecia, would not resemble Grecia. And Rome strongly resembles Grecia. Okay? Now, in Daniel 7:19, it says, then I wished for certainty concerning the fourth beast. That was diverse from them all. That's the third confirmation. And then the fourth one in Daniel 7:23, thus he said, the fourth beast is the fourth kingdom in the earth that is diverse from all kingdoms. So it's not even just diverse from the other beasts, it's diverse from all kingdoms. Well, Islam, being the final beast, was diverse from all kingdoms. It was a new culture, a new religion, and a new empire. They didn't have a nation to start off with. It was all brand new, started by one person who gained a few followers, who then gained more followers. They moved around and conquered everybody and created a massive global empire. That was diverse from all kingdoms, and it was diverse from all the prior beasts. However, Rome was just like the prior beast. So no, it cannot be Rome. Okay? It cannot be Rome. These are very good, quick, fast reasons why Rome cannot be the final beast. Okay? And again, remember what Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. If Rome was the final beast, and if the final beast is supposed to install a demonic currency of Satan, then why would Jesus tell us to be dealing with this demonic currency? It's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's absolute blasphemy to allege that. Now, finally, the 7-year tribulation myth. How long has this video been? 25 minutes? The 7-year tribulation myth. The best way to put it is, if you don't believe me, go look online. You go look up anybody. Don't go look up a person who believes in the 7-year tribulation. Don't go look to some wacky little website and look at all these people's, you know, half-knotted reasons for why this and that is the case. If you go look at the scholarly opinion, all scholarly opinion states, and I mean scholars, not Christians or ministers who own websites. I mean scholars will tell you that there is no 7-year tribulation mentioned in the Bible. There's not a single verse anywhere that mentions it, substantiates it, or even suggests it. Period. Okay? Instead of me wasting time, I pulled up quotes. I had quotes ready to read, but all of them were so short and simple, and they all said the same thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to waste my time reading these, because they all basically just say it has no basis in the Bible. There are no verses anywhere that actually substantiate this claim. It's not biblical. It is based on a misunderstanding, a gross misunderstanding of Daniel 9. In Daniel 9, we're told about the 490-year period. Every Christian believes Jesus is the Messiah. Every Christian should be aware of the, ancient, wide-held belief that Jesus, one of the best pieces of proof for Jesus, is that he, being the Messiah, cut off in Daniel 9:26, it acts as the best proof for Jesus as Messiah, because if Jesus died in 29 AD, and the decree to rebuild Jerusalem, street and wall, was decreed by Artaxerxes in 454 BC, that's precisely 483 years, which is precisely 69 weeks. And Daniel says after the 69 weeks, cut off his Messiah. So for like 2,000 years, this has been the best piece of proof scripturally that Jesus was the Messiah, because we have numbers from God as a prophecy, a legitimate prophecy, written hundreds of years before Jesus lived the earth, okay? And it proves and pinpoints when Jesus, the Messiah, would die. It would actually occur in 29 AD. It would take a few years, depending on when Artaxerxes' decree was. If it was 457, it would be then 26. If it was 454, then it would be 29. But Artaxerxes gave the one and only decree to rebuild Jerusalem, street and wall, and it was acted upon, and it's quoted upon in the Bible, so there's no argument, and in history. So it was Artaxerxes' decree, bam, you know exactly when Jesus died. And Daniel says after 483 years, Messiah is cut off. So for such a long time now, this has been like the hardest hitting piece of proof for Jesus as the Messiah. So in case you didn't know, if you're a Christian you didn't know, then you now you know. Okay? So that prophecy is critically important to Christians, in case you didn't know. That's why I made that little explanation. And it says that cut off his Messiah, and the city and the holy place are not his. The leader who has come does destroy the people, and its end is with a flood. Until the end is war, determined are desolations. And he, who's the he, the subject he is actually referring to Jesus here. I did a longer breakdown of that in another video. But he has strengthened a covenant with many 1 week, and in the midst of the week he causes sacrifice and present to cease, and by the wing of abominations he is making desolate, even till the consummation, and that which is determined is poured on the desolate one. So people commonly think, oh, this is talking about an evil person, an antichrist figure who comes in, takes away the sacrifices, and blah, blah, blah. Christians always overlook the fact that Jesus abolished the sacrifices. To start with, the New Testament in Hebrews teaches that sacrifices never did anything. It was an abomination to God. Okay, it was an error, a mistake. God didn't want it. Jesus quotes the Old Testament where he says that God didn't want and doesn't want sacrifice or offerings or anything like that. So as a Christian, we should know better. We should know that sacrifices are needed, right? But there's so much ignorance in the average Christian. and they take so much for granted, and they don't study enough, and they don't know enough. They just listen to people and listen to theories, but they don't study enough, right? So when they read this verse, if you're uneducated, you read this verse, you would think, oh, it sounds like an evil, spooky person, like Antichrist coming in. Oh, sacrifice. Oh, he must be taking away the sacrifice, and then they attach it to the other verses of the prophecy. Erroneous triangulation, just because they're seeing simple words and they're in a simple-minded fashion, just lumping the simple words together. Like you see 3 avocados, you go blump, you gather them together. That's what they're doing in their mind. Instead of doing the homework and the hours and the years of study, no, it's just like, oh, lump, 3 avocados. That's what they do, right? But it's actually talking about Jesus. Now, we know as Christians, putting the argument aside who it is talking about, who cares, right? As Christians, we know the sacrifices don't mean anything anyways. We are also taught that Jesus abolished the sacrifices. So whoever it is here talking about, it doesn't matter anyways. We should know those principles as Christians nonetheless. Okay? But the fact is that where in those 2 paragraphs that finish chapter 9 did you see any talk about Rome cropping up as the final beast kingdom, then dying out, being conquered, going extinguished for 2,000 years, was secretly cropping up as the Holy Catholic Empire, and then ruling through the United Nations and such in the end of days, and whatever other twist that individuals might put on it? We don't see any mention of that. It's a direct following on. Jesus died on the 69th week, 483 years. Guess what? 490 years. The next 7 years are when the next 7 years happened. Now, any scholar will tell you that, like I already mentioned, the belief in a 7-year tribulation in the end days is based on a misunderstanding of Daniel chapter 9. Because people, unfortunately, I hate to say it, who aren't as educated, read the verses without as much understanding and knowledge in their mind. They do the simple avocado trick, lump the avocados together, and they make the assumption that, oh, well, this sounds like an Antichrist, but the Antichrist is the end days. So, we must have to just take our magic scissors and chop this 7 off, the final 7 years, and let's just put it 2,000 years forward or whatever to the end days. Where is the basis and the reasoning for doing this? Especially in the scripture, but where in common sense is the reasoning for that? But that is literally what 7-year tribulation theorists do. That is the core, that is the cornerstone of their entire belief system. That 7 years was snipped off and put at the end days. And they have various twisted ways of trying to interpret it with the 3.5s and the 3.5s, and you add them together. I'm not going to go down that headache-inducing road for this short video. Okay? Any scholar will tell you there's no basis for it in the Bible. That's the most important thing. Okay? But when you look at the verses, this is where the 7-year myth came from. When you look at the reasoning for it, there is no reasoning. It's senseless. It's illogical. It's ridiculous to just think, oh, I'm going to cut this 7 off and put it 2,000 years later down the road. It's just ridiculous. It's preposterous. That's the best word for it, is preposterous. Those final 7 years were part of the 490 years. Did God not... Here's some common sense for you, right? God said it's 490 years. He told Daniel the 70 years of Jeremiah's prophecy were 70 weeks of years. It's actually 490 years. This is what God told Daniel. Everybody knows that. It's 490 years. God did not say it's going to be 483 and then 2,000 year pause and then 7. He said 490. 490 is a number. You can't add 2,000 onto it. You can't ignore that Rome got conquered and fell and died in like 200-300 AD. You can't ignore all of these things and just say that, oh no, despite what God said, it being 490. You know, like what if God came to you and said, okay, close your eyes and take 490 steps. And there's a cliff in front of you. But you stop at 490, you stop right at the edge. But you think in your head, oh, no. God told me 490, but I'm going to take an extra 2,000 steps. You know, I'm going to go 483, and then I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to take an extra 2,000 steps and just put the magical 7 right at the end there, and I'll be all right. You close your eyes, you can walk, you go right off the edge of the cliff. No, God told you 490 steps. There's 490 years, 490 steps. Bam, they happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, all the way up to 490. There's no stop and then 2,000 years inserted. No. That is so preposterously ridiculous. Okay? Their entire theory is based on nonsense. Complete jello. Okay? Complete jello foundation. Jiggly, wiggly, squiggly, and stupid. Okay? It makes no sense. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely preposterous. And I hope everybody truly understands that. Okay? God said it's 490. The 7 years happened right after the prior 483 years. Why would they not? Tell me, why would they not? Because the person here sounds like a big spooky person. A lot of scholars argue that it's actually Jesus they're talking about because he abolished the sacrifice. And it was the Christians who followed in his steps who enacted all of this. But anyways, don't listen to me. But more importantly, just ignore the petty arguments. Look at the logic, like I said. Okay, there's no reason to believe in a 7-year tribulation. Quite clearly, the New Testament makes it clear, Book of Revelations, that'll be a 3.5-year tribulation. That is what is stated. 3.5 years. And that's what scholars would tell you, because it's quite clearly stated. And the 3.5-year tribulation is done by the two witnesses, because it tells you that in Revelation 11. It is done by the two witnesses for 3.5 years. People don't live 1,260 years. The two witnesses are two people who are killed and they resurrect. They're two human beings. They don't represent things. Some churches teach that they represent Old and New Testament or Jews and Christians and this and that and all these other wacky theories, right? But they're two people who testify and they plague the earth for 3.5 years, every plague that they can think of, okay? And this is the final 3.5-year period right before the resurrection occurs, because they're resurrected and bam, that's the final day. We're judged, resurrected, and all that. Okay, so there's no room for this 7-year tribulation. There's no basis for it. And Rome is not the final beast. You know, the Vatican Empire, the Vatican doesn't even have its empire anymore. The Vatican does not rule the world. Rome does not exist in secret like a conspiracy, ruling the world as the theory alleges. It does not. Rome died in 200 or 300 AD. The remnants of Rome converted to Christianity. Even if you don't like that version of Christianity, who cares? It's still Christianity. Would you rather them go convert to, I don't know, some tribal shamanistic thing? You know what I mean? Would you rather it be that? No, they converted to Christianity at least, right? And then they died out. Then the Catholic Empire rose up. Oh, we would want to accuse the Catholic Empire of being Rome. Okay, whatever, right? But guess what? They died out. The Catholic Empire doesn't rule the world anymore. Well, it never did, right? So, where is Rome ruling the world? It already ruled the world. It ruled the world and it ruled the Holy Land in Jesus' day. Okay? In Jesus' day. That's when Rome had its time. Rome wasn't one of the final beast kingdoms. Rome was just one of the many micro-kingdoms that gained power. It was a big empire, but for a short period of time. Lots of kingdoms. You had this Seleucid Empire, I think it was. You had the Sasanian Empire, Byzantine Empire. You had all these other empires cropping up in between the fall of Grecia and the rise of Islam. That was a vast period of time. Grecia fell in like 150 BC. Rome came in. That was one of the first ones. Okay, and then after Rome fizzled out, it was replaced by other ones. And then eventually Islam in 600 and something AD. That's how it actually went. But to say that Rome was the final beast, I mean, it's just ignoring everything that Islam did, for starters. They ruled a much bigger kingdom that was far more global. They were far more tyrannical. They were anti-Christian, anti-biblical, to the fullest extent. And there's a million reasons why they fit the beast far better than Rome would ever fit the beast. You can pull out all the fluff you want about this Roman Empire and this and that there. But there's just too much fluff. There's just too much fluff. It doesn't make sense. But anyways, folks, God bless you all. Everybody take care.